showing you guys how to do a charcoal drawing by laying down a charcoal base first and then using an eraser to pull out the highlights. So I've got my blank paper, got my reference, we're doing self-portraits. I split it up into 1-inch squares and I'm going to end up transferring those onto here after I lay down my first charcoal. So what we're doing, we're using our little charcoal piece. You see that? Just a little square of charcoal, and I'm actually just going to go over the whole thing and cover it just with a very light layer of charcoal first. That way, instead of having to draw all of my shadows, every single one except for these highlights, I can have the first value or shade of color already down, and then I can just use my eraser to draw in the highlights, and I can use my charcoal to come back in and draw the darker parts. It'll make it a little bit easier, and I think you'll understand more once I show you on here. So, like I said, I'm just going to draw one flat color. So let's just jump into it, and I think it'll make more sense as we go. So I'm just using the flat part of this, and I'm just going to lay it all the way across, and I'm going to cover the whole thing. It's really smart to start off lighter, and if it's still too light, we can go darker as we go, but if you start off dark, then it's really hard to go back to lighter. It's almost impossible. So start off just pushing very lightly. You notice I'm covering the whole thing. I'm not leaving big spaces like this. I'm covering as much as I can and just lightly spreading it across my paper. Alright, so now I have it all laid out, and then I want to make it one smooth layer so that it looks nice and even. It's not kind of textured like this on top of my portrait. So I'm just using paper towel. This is the one paper towel I have at home. You guys will use what we have in the classroom. And I'm just going to go in a circular motion and push fairly hard on this to blend it all together. So just big circles all the way around the paper. So I've got it mostly evened out. I'm kind of just going back in and doing a couple more circles over the spots where I see kind of a patch of light. So like for example up here, it's a little bit lighter. So I'm just going back over that to make it more even all the way across. Not going to be perfectly even. It still has some of those scratchy lines, but you're really not going to notice that once we get into the actual drawing. You just want it to be as even as possible, spread out as you possibly can. So that's looking pretty good. So now I'm going to go in and draw those grid lines. And instead of doing it with a pencil, which is going to end up showing up later on, I'm going to draw the whole thing in with eraser. So over here I did 1-inch grid lines. So on this one, it's a little bit bigger, so I'm actually just going to double it. I'm going to do 2-inch grid lines on this one, and I'm going to choose what squares I want to be in there. So using my ruler and an eraser this time, I'm just going to measure out 2-inch squares all the way across. Remember, it's important to measure up here and down here, and then we'll connect it. So I'm going to go ahead, every 2 inches, I'm going to make a mark. And again, I made that mark with my eraser, not with my pencil. Going down to the bottom, gonna make those same marks, 2 inches. Okay, and then I don't have a meter stick, my ruler doesn't reach, so I'm gonna do one more in the middle so I can reach from the top. And then connect. Okay, so I got my 2-inch by 2-inch squares going this way. I'm going to do 2 inches going this way now. Same exact process. Every 2 inches, I'm going to make a mark. Alright, so I have my grid. Next comes choosing which boxes I want to use on my reference sheet. So I'm looking at which squares I want to keep. I've counted, so up here I have a 6 by 9 squares. On this one I have 5 by 9 squares. So I have a couple of options. One, I can just put this on here as it is, and I can leave a little bit of space for just more of the background. So for example, I could put my image on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just like I have 5 inches, and then this last one will just be kind of more of my black open space, or I could do it on this side as well. Or I can cut off this part of the paper. I think I'm just gonna leave it like this, and I'm just gonna put mine exactly where I see it, 1 through 4, and then A through I. So I'm gonna label these just so it's easier to transfer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and since I only have 5 on here, I'm only gonna label the 5. I'm not gonna worry about that 6th box, and then A through I. All right, so now I am transferring my picture to my grid, all with my eraser. You don't need to worry about details, so I'm not going to come in and try to draw the highlight in the eye, tiny little small details. I'm just laying down the basic outline, the contour of my face, and I'll come in and start doing my shading. I'm going to go ahead and do that by looking at each box and transferring it to each box I see up there. I have just the outline, and you notice it doesn't look exactly like my picture. That's okay. It's not going to at this stage, so don't freak out if it's not looking right. I just got the outline. It's going to start looking realistic once we get the color in there, okay? So here's where I'm starting. Now I'm going to go ahead and start my shading. Golden.